We have a question here that says rationalize this expression. In today's video, we are going to be looking at the rationalization of source part 2. The part 1 of this video was posted previously, so you can go and watch that one. This one is part 2. If we have this kind of a question to rationalize this surd, this is what we do. We need to understand first the concept of surds and conjugates. We need to understand surds and conjugates. What are conjugates of surd? Conjugates of surds are the complements of the surds. This is what I mean. If we have these two surds, for instance, 2 minus root 3 and another surd root 2 plus root 2, the conjugates of these surds are 2 plus root 3 for this and root 5 minus root 2 for this. The conjugate of a surd is formed by simply changing the sign at the middle to the opposite sign. This is 2 minus root 3. The conjugate becomes 2 plus root 3. This is root 5 plus root 2. The conjugate becomes root 5 minus root 2. Simply change the sign of the surd at the middle and you obtain the conjugates. So these two surds are conjugate surds. These two surds are conjugate surds. If you have these surds, this is its conjugate. If you have this surd, this is its conjugate, and vice versa. So we need to understand the term conjugate of a surd. Now back to this question. We are given the question to be 3 all over 5 minus root 2 to rationalize. To rationalize this surd, it simply means to remove the irrational part from the denominator. In other words, make the denominator to be rational. By being rational, we mean make it a whole number, a negative integer, a recurring decimal, or a terminating decimal. These are examples of rational numbers. So we need to make the denominator rational. That is why we call this process rationalization of surds. Now, how do we rationalize this kind of expression? You rationalize this by simply multiplying the numerator and denominator of this expression by the conjugate of the denominator. What is the conjugate of this denominator, 5 minus root 2? The conjugate from what we have said here is obviously 5 plus root 2. So if we rationalize this surd, what we have becomes 3 over 5 minus root 2 times 5 plus root 2 all over 5 plus root 2. So we have multiplied the numerator and the denominator by the conjugate of this denominator here, which is 5 plus root 2. If you look at it very carefully, 5 plus root 2 divided by 5 plus root 2 will go out, that is 1, and you will be left with this. So by multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the conjugate, we have not changed anything. It is mathematically correct. Now let's continue the solution. The numerator is easy to multiply. What about the denominator? For us to multiply the denominator, let's look at the conjugates. They are typical expansion of what we call the difference of two squares. What is the difference of two squares? This is what the difference of two squares look like. A square minus b square. It is called the difference of two squares because we have the square of a difference the square of b. So it is called the difference of two squares. If you expand the difference of two squares such as this, the answer is simply a plus b times a minus b. If you have this expression, you can write it as this. If you have this expression, you can write it as this. That is what it means. So if you look at this and this, they are similar. 5 minus root 2, 5 plus root 2. So we can say 5 is our a, while root 2 is our b. So if we look at this, in principle, it means we can write this denominator as 5 squared minus root 2 squared. So let's now solve this. Let's start with the numerator and then go to the denominator. So this becomes 3 times 5 is 15 plus 3 times root 2 is 3 root 2. Now at the denominator, because this is similar to the difference of two squares, we can simply write it as 5 squared minus root 2 all squared. It is simple from here. So this becomes 15 plus 3 root 2 all over 5 squared is 25 minus the square root here. We knock out the square here and we'll be left with 2. So root 2 squared is simply 2. 25 minus 2 is 23. So this expression becomes 15 plus 3 root 2 all over 23. And this is the answer. It is that simple. You can still split this if you don't find this in an objective question and write it as 15 all over 23 plus 3 root 2 all over 23. You just separated the denominator between both sides, both terms of the numerator, and it is equally correct. Looking at this explanation, it's very simple and straightforward, and I believe you understood it. If that is the case, then try this simple one here. Simplify this expression, or rather, rationalize this expression. That should be the right word, I think, and put your answer in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching this video, and see you in our next video. Bye.